I'm in Hawaii right now. It's a tropical island.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I haven't been there
Beautiful
in
here.
years.
Yeah, I just came back from a beautiful ceremony retreat with the monks. They had a puja ceremony,
Oh, cool.
traditional for the island.
Hmm.
So it's very beautiful. I had you in mind differently.
Is that where you're from originally?
No, I'm from California.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, I was just traveling there.
Yeah.
But I'm very grateful. I'm very excited to meet you again, even although from this experience is our first time,
Just the virtual meeting, I know.
the virtual meeting. But I definitely remember you from my past life, as shared out with you briefly.
Hmm.
And it was clear. I mean, the moment I met you first time was about a month ago.
Hmm.
And the moment you start having a conversation with the next level soul,
Hmm.
Mr. Ferrari, it was just so beautiful. Just listening to you, I'm like, I do remember him.
Hmm.
And then I got a beautiful information from his spirit saying that past life regression as the second grandfather.
Mm.
So as a family member.
Right.
Yeah,
Which is what's happening now. We're finding soul family. That's what's showing up as we're
absolutely.
moving through this transition.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tell me about yourself, Roger. When did you start to experience, um, for a lot of people for this show, this channel today, they have no idea who you are, and I'm sure a lot of people they might know, so we can get some information about you more.
This is never what I was going to do in my life. This was not where I was going. And I came from very, pretty traditional family. And so but it was different in certain senses. One, my grandmother, my mother's side, my mother's mother, was a Christian Scientist. So that
Mhm.
started opening me up to different ways of thinking because it was very different when I was going to school and all of that. It was weird that we didn't take medicine and we didn't do some of the things that everyone else did. And so it was great in giving me that awareness, but it also caused me to feel different and odd because I was so different than all the other kids, so to speak. And so when you start forming those beliefs when you're younger, they can kind of settle in. And then you start denying everything else about yourself because of this particular thing that's going on. And so um and then I had other examples which was so fascinating. My grandmother, who was a devout Christian Scientist, I mean, she just did her work. I would watch her every morning. Every morning she would be sitting at the table doing her studies, and all of this. And I didn't get it. But then I noticed that she's never really sick. I never saw her going through a lot of the illnesses. There was one day I remember that she was in bed with a cold, but that's pretty much all I remember. And but I was having every kind of illness, every kind of disease, all the childhood things. I had all of them, everything you can imagine. And then I had other things that started happening to me later in my life. And at one point, I even talked to my grandmother. I said, "Why are you able to do this? And I'm having all of this difficulty." And she said, "You work to the level of your belief." I go, okay, okay. At that time, I didn't know what she was saying, but she was just trying to give me some peace and to not worry about what I would start to figure it out, basically, is what she was saying. And I understand it now, but I didn't get what she was talking about when I first heard it. That was the kind of the evolution in my thinking in my life that I had to come to. But then that also showed me that, well, she gave me a great foundation. When we start finding those people in our family lines or whatever, we can start making these connections to our individual journeys, and she was kind of a conduit, so to speak,
Mhm.
for that. Um, and so I would have never, and I spent years uh, denying that I was even hearing stuff and anything was going on. And I think that it first began when I was a child because I remember lying and being in my bedroom and hearing things or seeing things kind of moving around or something. And I started to become frightened. I go, what is that? And so then I started, I didn't want to do it. And it made me a little afraid of going to bed, of going to sleep, because I knew these beings, something was going to kind of show up. It's like the kids when they think of the boogeyman under the bed or something like that. Well, yeah, that was a real feeling that I would have quite a bit. So that, uh, and then I would have other things that came up that didn't make sense, especially as a young kid. I was depressed at times, and I would
Mm-hmm.
start to cry. I mean, I hadn't had any experiences to know, but there was something that was emerging that I was pushing away, that I didn't want to see. And then I started to make up other things about what that might have been. At one point, I thought maybe my sadness was because my great grandmother left me. She died because when I was quite young, I spent a lot of time with her and I became very attached. And so I kept thinking, well, because she died, that's why I was disconnected from myself. And because I remember I used to go and sit in her rocking chair in her room after she was gone. I'm trying to find something, but my aunt told me later that no, that didn't really happen. That didn't really go on. You were different. But then through a channeling session, it came through. No, it wasn't your great grandmother. It was us. It was the communication that I was grieving because I was receiving that communication when I was much younger, but because it was so weird and strange, I put it away and I blocked it, and I went on to block it for years and years and years. And it wasn't until even 1988 when I first started doing automatic writing to see, because I just was kind of guided to do that. I actually read an article about automatic writing, and I was going through a whole bunch of stuff at that time. I was just really kind of I was changing, going to a new career, and I was freaked out, and so had no money. I didn't know what I was going to do. And this guy said, when he made this transition, he started this automatic writing and he got information and it helped him. And his business started changing. So I said, okay, I'll try that. Then when I started doing it, I sat there because I had started meditating a bit before. I had done a course in miracles before that. I'd done a lot of studied other things, but um, and so I decided to sit and meditate and see what would come out. And then for several days, nothing happened. Then one day, I'm I felt like something was taking over my hand and I'm just like kind of writing. And it was so weird because it felt like the words were just coming and the information and I'm just, and I thought, what is happening here?
Yeah.
And then it frightened me. And I said, who's speaking to me? I made this disconnect. And then I heard, what we're another part of you, your higher self. But if that
Mm-hmm.
makes you uncomfortable, you can call us whatever you like. And so I said, Wilhelm. Didn't know why I was saying that or where it came from. I'm not German. Why would that be happening? And it wasn't until decades later where I figured out the connection to that name. And then it started showing me that I had been connected my entire life. And the first thing that started to happen, because I didn't even look at why that name Wilhelm came up for years. I didn't even bother. And this was 1979. I'm taking you back a long time. 1979. Or 78. I'm living in Chicago, and I'm about to move to New York. And the last apartment that I had in Chicago was on this street, the corner of Dearborn and Goethe.
Interesting.
Yes. And I said, and it was weird. I didn't know what Goethe was. I didn't even know the name. I looked at that and I go, that's a really weird name. And I don't know how to pronounce it because the letters didn't make any sense. And years later, I started putting this together. And this is going to be so strange and people will understand it. I was doing the 16 personalities test that Myers-Briggs. I don't know if you've ever done that. It's a personality test, and it gives you your personality type. And
Mm-hmm.
I came out with being an INFJ, an advocate, as it's called. I go, that's interesting. Still didn't think anything about it. Years later, I'm looking at my phone, and that particular profile for the advocate was on my phone. And I go, that's really strange. I didn't do the test, or I did it years ago. Why is it there now? Why is it showing up? I still can't explain this because I've never found an explanation for it. but I started reading it and I go, oh no, this is who I am. And then the first thing that was there was a quote from Goethe.
Mhm.
I go, okay, that's really interesting. But I hadn't studied anything about him. It was still, again, more years before I even took it further. Then I started looking him up. And then I saw that, oh, he wrote this book, Wilhelm Meister, The Search for Self-Actualization. I go, and then I started studying some of his philosophies and some of his ideas. And I go, this feels like me. This feels
Mhm.
like who I am. Then years later, so I said, okay, but I hadn't made that connection. Then years later, I heard of Schopenhauer. I go, oh, and I started listening to some works or reading more stuff about Schopenhauer. I go, he sounds like me as well. Why is all this information feeling like my Wilhelm that comes through? Because that's how it felt. And then
Mhm.
I looked at Schopenhauer, and his middle name is Wilhelm.
Interesting.
And all of these things started to make sense. And then when I started doing my current work, my guide said, you're all connected to those who came before.
Yes.
Show up in different ways, and you'll have connections, you'll have synchronicities, or what they call glimpses. You'll have glimpses or clues of those things that show up in your experience. Didn't understand it, but that's now I can put it together and see that's what was happening. And the point was that we've always been guided. We've always been moving in the right place in our lives. We just figure it out at different times. That's all. And so then they started giving me, so I figured, okay, this is all making sense. But then they said, well, we gave you this information for this time in your world. And that made no sense to me because I started changing in like 2016, 17. I didn't know why, but I followed my guidance, and I'm just thinking I'm supposed to be moving in a different direction. I had a different business at that time. Uh,
Mhm.
I was doing my vocal coaching business, which I had made really large, but I said I'm not supposed to be doing that. No one can understand this because I was earning a lot of money there, and my
Mhm.
family said, "Why would you give that up?" I said, I just know that I'm supposed to do something. I just know that I'm supposed to go in a different direction. And even my business partner at that time, um, he saw something different in me as well. And he said, I think because, doing the voice stuff, he says, I think you're supposed to be doing something like personal development or something like that. I said, okay. I said, okay. And this was coming up. I said, okay, I'll do it, but I don't want it to be woohooey. I don't want it to be really this weird stuff.
Mhm.
That's because I don't want to be judged. And he knew that I did the writing and the channel and all that. But I said I didn't want to tell people about it. And I had done that for years because when I first started receiving the messages, I tried to keep it hidden for 20 years until someone found a writing on my desk at my office one time and said, oh, this is really great. You send them to me? I go, okay. So then that's what I began doing during that time, but it was never somewhere that I was going to go. I was not a person who was in the spiritual community. I didn't do a whole bunch of those things. I just stayed away from it. And like I said, the only thing that I did, and this was back in 1986, um, you know who Marianne Williamson is?
No.
She's an author. She wrote a book called a Return to Love and all that. And she's also happens to be running for president right now. She did it before too. She ran in 2016 as well. And so anyway, that time she was doing lectures on A Course in Miracles. And
Mhm.
so the person I worked for was friends with her, and he suggested maybe I should go. And I did, and I started loving it. And then I discovered the course, and I did the complete course. And I go, this makes sense to me, and I kind of understood it. This is interesting, but again, I'm still not going in this direction. That was 1986. Then I started writing things in a different way. I didn't understand it. I wrote three songs during that time. One with another friend, somebody who was connected to Marianne. But the title of that song was called "Help the World to Mend." We didn't know why. I didn't know why we were doing or why I was writing it then. But I wrote on my own. I wrote two other songs. One was called "Listen to Your Heart," and the other one was called "Better Than Me." And the message of the better than me was that no one is better than you. And
Mhm.
you're not better than anyone else, basically, but you're all figuring that out. That's what started to, but I didn't know why I was writing it at that time. Or listen to your heart, meaning follow our intuition, what we're being guided to do. No clue. I'm just creating stuff. So, and the place where it gets really crazy was that as I started changing, I sold part of my business, my other part of my business, because um, I knew that I was being anchored to that because of the money, because I was dependent on it, but I knew that I was supposed to do something else. And the only way for me to do it was to cut the cord. And it was terrifying because I said, now what am I going to do? And so I'm like out here floundering, trying to figure out how I'm going to live. And my family helped me a bit because they could see, wait a minute, we don't know what this guy is doing, but we'll do something. And so then um, I like moved out of my office. I closed that. I did all kinds of things. I just started moving, still not knowing exactly why. Then in 2020, my messages I was receiving started to change. They started to become different. And they actually made me a little uncomfortable because I knew we were going to be changing. And my guide said, yeah, you're going to be moving through a restructuring,
That's
is what
beautiful.
that's what they called it. And I said, okay. And then they said, but we've given you everything. And I mean, that was in 2020. And so that entire year, we were still moving through the pandemic and all of that stuff. And so I'm knowing something else is going on beyond just the pandemic, but I didn't quite get it. Then in 2021,
Mhm.
I go out for a walk and I hear my guide say to me, "We gave you everything you needed to know in 2012." I said, that was really crazy. Why am I hearing that? And then I come to my computer and I look arbitrarily, well, it wasn't, I know everything's not that, but I went and I found a folder that said Wilhelm on it that I hadn't looked at, that I hadn't paid attention to. And I opened it and most of the messages were from 2012. I go, this is really odd. Why didn't I see them? And I started reading them and they felt different. And I go, but I still had trouble believing this, that I had been given this information that was supposed to be used during this time. So one morning, I was like, I usually do the writings and all of that in the morning when I get up. I like to get up early, do my meditation, and then I'll write and then publish them. Um, this one day I had a very early meeting online in Israel, and so I was late. I didn't have enough time to really sit down and meditate and do the message. But then I heard it doesn't matter. Just go and pull the ones from 2012. It'll work for today. But and I'd never done that before. I never used something that I had written before and republished it. But they said, no, you're going to do that today. And Shelley, this is so crazy. I put that message out there, and then my associate tells me later that that was the message that he needed to hear that day.
Wow.
I go, okay, this is really weird. Then it gets crazier. Um, They said, and we gave you things in 2012, and if you meet someone and we gave you a message on their birthday, it will probably resonate for them. And I go, that doesn't make sense. I doubted all of this. And then I started testing it, and it was working so much. And they said, this is because we want you all to understand that you've always been connected, that you always have divine guidance, and it just shows up in different ways. And what we're trying to do is get you to break your disbelief in what is possible. So what's your month and date? Let's see if we have one.
February 19th.
Let me see. February 19th. Let's see if we have that. As they said, well, you might not have all of them, but if you have one, that should be there, February 19th. Let's see. Yeah, I do. Yes, excellent. Wow, this is who you are. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong one. Ugh. Well, I'm sorry. They gave me the wrong. It came up the wrong one. No, the present. You are the present. Oh, wow. Oh, this is even better. Okay, this is good. Shelley, you're gonna get this, okay? Wow, I needed to see this too. The present is your gift. While that thought may seem like a play on words, it is one that you would do well to hold. When you understand that in your present moment of now, you possess the ability to do, be, have, and create anything you desire, you simultaneously release all your otherwise valid excuses that have held you back, so to speak. When you allow yourself to be occupied with all the thoughts of what you have not done or any form of regret, it is much more difficult to muster the motivation or creativity to do anything at all. You can only act in your present. So that is indeed your gift now.
Oh my, thank you so much for sharing that. And exactly what you're saying, it resonated with me. I had my fair share of exact what you're saying, not be in the moment and think about, oh, how could I have done it differently? That definitely has changed through the guidance, and my gift is very similar to yours. Um, and I know from bottom of my heart you didn't took any type of training or courses or special communities, same as here.
Mhm.
And people most of the times wonder where we got the information,
Yes.
what kind of practice we do. Is just self memory and self realization.
Hmm.
I've been similar experience like yourself. I was a child. I do remember I was talking to the beings, and my mother, she was very worried about me.
Hmm.
And she said, if this is continuing, I have to take you to therapist. Maybe you do have schizophrenia or other illness. And if they said no, so I'm going to ask you moving forward to pretty much don't have a self talk. Who you're talking to.
Hmm.
So we went to a therapist. I remember I was age 9, and I remember his office. I remember his face, everything. And he told my mother she's been a child having imaginary friends. It's nothing bad or nothing good. It's just the way it is. Kids in this stage, they do that. And I felt like I was a different child. I
Hmm.
have a brother, and in our family, I was standing out from grandparents' point of view and everybody else around me.
Hmm.
I was very curious by nature. I was very compassionate. I was very loving. And just like yourself, I started becoming depressed in the school. I was very quiet. I wasn't speaking to the friends. I pulled away. I was very shy because I started believing something is off. Maybe
Hmm.
something's off. Why I'm different than others.
Hmm.
So I turned it off, exactly what you mentioned. And I was searching and I was like, is something more in this universe going on? Although I was feeling things come and going like corner of my eyes, and I'm like, cannot be kidding me, imagining things.
All right.
And 2012, I had a near death experience, and
Hmm.
it was on Easter. Actually, I did rebaptize myself. I was going to church more, and I was like, something doesn't still connecting me, something's off. So literally, as I was going to the church, and I said, please show me more. I came home, I had a dream about my grandparents. I was very close to my grandparents as well, just like yourself. And my grandfather said, it's your time, let's go. And it was just like everybody else explaining, this bright light came, from his house, and he was reaching my hand, and I said, I'm not ready yet. Um, and instantly I woke up, but I saw my body laying in the bed, and I couldn't get back to my body. And I do remember it was some sort of a liquid blue from my belly cord. It was separating. And I realized that that's the connection from the birth that we get from our mother. Our mother womb is separating. And my toes started getting cold, and I was really fighting to get back to my body. And I'm a mother. I have a daughter right now. She's 21 years old. But at the time she was young, she was still in elementary. And
Hmm.
she was like, please wake up. We're going to be late for school. And I was having this not knowing what to do. And finally, gradually, I saw this really misty cloud coming back to the body. And I got a couple choking, like you're out of a breath and you're gagging for air. And that came. And suddenly I came back to my body, but it took me a while to really process what happened. And I did ask her, did you said that? Did you look for me? Did she say, please wake up? And she said, yes. So I took her to school and didn't let things really affect her. I was being monitored, protecting her because she felt something's off. And I took a time away from work that day to figure out what was that, what's going on with me. And the next time I'm back to work, like nothing bad happened. Everything is normal. Not too fast. I start hearing people inner conscious. I start feeling the nature, everything between. And I start seeing different entity coming to the house with different color and shape and figure. And I was really scared and confused. And my body started changing as well. One day a headache, the next day cold or flu, going doctor, they can figure it out. And I was hearing the voice that's saying, go to the Bible, start opening the Bible, and I started reading, and I was seeing angelic word background noise singing, literally. And it wasn't about preaching Bible or putting me back to religion. It was none of that. It was just simply showing me the code of what is coming.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't really clear at the time. Fast forwarding, and beginning of 2015, things got better and more clear. And 2020, just like yourself, the message came through. And the person that I saw in my childhood, most people didn't know her as a Mother Earth or Sophia, she showed up in my present moment. And I started connecting to different type of entity from above, and we seen them in the book by different shape and figure and form. And the channeling, just like yourself, start. And I started speaking Lemurian language back in the Atlantis time.
Mm-hmm.
And all my past life is unfolding,
Mm-hmm.
just like yourself. So yeah, it's beautiful, this type of gift that we have. And to going back to what you read for me for my birthday, being a present moment,
Mm-hmm.
I experienced that today again. I knew this young lady from Hawaii. We met her a year ago, and I supposed to see her, and they told me, take your time and don't call her, surprise her, be in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was going inside the shop, literally before our call today, I was going inside and she was right there, and I didn't call her. So it's
Mm-hmm.
totally by surprise. And I was in that present moment. Just like yourself today, we didn't participate to put any type of topic or reading or having a memo. We're just going by what the spirit's sharing.
Right. And then also I have to tell you, so because I doubted all of this too. I mean, because I kept going when I got the very clear information about the particular work that I was supposed to bring through and that it was for this time in our world, I just said, no, this doesn't make sense to me. So in 2021, I had two Akashic Records readings done. And the very first one, she kind of it was very funny when we were done with it. She admitted that she hadn't been doing it that long, but she had just studied a whole lot. But then when we were done and she read everything, she says, I think I'm supposed to be following you. So I said, okay, whatever that means. We'll see. I had no idea. And so then I kept going on. That was in the summer of 2021. So then in December of 2021, I decided I'd need to do another one. And I went to the lady that I had met. We were in this one organization together. And so I knew she did this. And so she started reading me, and she was so accurate with so much. And she brought up my Atlantean memory and all of this. But she said, you're also, she started telling me my life in Egypt. And
That's what I remember you. Sorry to
yeah.
cut you off.
And that's what
Second time you went there. Yes.
yes. And she
Hmm.
said that you had this priestess job, this high, and you would it was, which was a great thing because you would cover the eyes of the mind, something of the before they were mummified, and that's what you would do. But she says, but here this time you're here to open eyes of the others. And I go, oh, that's really fascinating. And then she's paused for a bit and she goes, and you were given, and she started to say the word operating. And I go, oh wow. And I started freaking out because What I heard was that they gave me a philosophy that was supposed to be used to help move in the new world, and it was called your life operating instructions. And so when the word operating came out of her mouth, I said, okay, this wasn't accidental. And I'm in the recording, you could see I just break out into tears. I just break down into tears because it was just so amazing and so present what she was saying. And then I said, okay, maybe you should start accepting. I still resisted. But what I did was to kind of prove myself to see if this made any sense. It was just driving me crazy. So I put together a little program and I used it in December of that year and put people in it, and I could see that they were transforming quickly. I go, this is nuts. What was happening? And so then I said, okay, let me start moving in a different direction, believing and owning all of this and moving forward. So that's what happened, which is why I did. You found me on Alex's. I think you saw me on Alex's. That's why I did that. I resisted forever going on there, but I knew I needed to um speak to more. I need to get my message to more people. And I did that interview or we filmed it on April 5th. And so then it took like 8 weeks. He thought he was going to be, he said, it might be out in 4 or 5 weeks. So that's what I was thinking, but it took 8 weeks before it was there. And then I started going crazy. This is what I've done a lot. I said, oh no, wait a minute. Maybe he's not going to publish it. Maybe it's not going to come out. Maybe it was terrible. See, because when I channel, I don't remember what's happening in there. And
I
so
can't.
yeah, and so I'm like thinking, oh, it must have been terrible, like all of that. That's what I went through first, but it's actually turned out to be quite the opposite. So when we hold ourselves back and just go and not going into taking that next step, is when we have the greatest difficulties. And I did that quite a bit.
Oh,
So
I done that too. Just
yeah,
coming front of camera was like, all right, how family is gonna start portraying me or friends. A lot of people they might say lost it or put me in different box. Here we go again.
yes,
Then the spirit said it's not about you, how people perceiving you. It's about that voice that give you and the knowledge, so you can
mhm,
share it with the people that they do ready to hear. And it's all
right,
about the right time. And most people they reframe it as divine timing.
hmm
And I do remember it was the point of my life, just like yourself. I was in denial. I was looking for energy healer in 2020. And I just came from very toxic relationship and great teacher, although um, then
they
they
are.
yes, because people are like, oh no, why? But it's a great teacher if you see it from that perspective.
Mhm,
It was a beautiful experience. I learned so much. And that's where I'm at right here in front of you right now, present moment right now, because of all that. And they explained to me, please drive to this nightclub in Calabasas,
mhm,
nightclub. And I'm like, no, I must be going crazy. I'm not going there. So I was fighting it. And then I was like, all right, let's see what comes out of it. I'm
mhm,
driving. Of course, they're working in construction in the road in 405. And I'm like, no, this is insane. I need to make a U-turn. So a couple times I was debating in an argument and was going back and forth with myself. And the voice said very loud and clear as a feminine energy, please continue driving. So I stood there and I walked in. I'm like, okay, 45 minutes passed by. I'm rolling my eyes. I'm already not in a good space.
mhm,
And standing there and pouting like a little girl.
mhm,
And they said, please do not leave. He's coming. And I turn around right about going to the bar, getting a water. I don't drink. I'm not really attracted to alcohol. It's not religion belief per se. It's not something I enjoy so often to do.
mhm,
And I saw this gentleman standing by the bar and he tapped my shoulder. He goes, hi, can I get you a drink? I said, no, thank you. I don't want to drink. He's like, would you like to go dance? I said, no, thank you. I'm not here to dance. Completely blocked, not hearing, feeling anything. And I'm like, I'm waiting for somebody. He's like, interesting. Why don't you let go of the pain? What?
mhm.
And he's like, I was like, who are you? So we talk and he goes, they told me to be here. The spirit said to be here. And I said, I'm looking for the person. They said he's going to be here. And he's like, would you like to have a talk outside? I said, sure. We start walking, and then he introduced himself, and he's the original Barney.
Oh.
His name is David Joyner, and he's also energy healer. He's like a soul family.
Uh-huh.
We connected, and I'm not kidding you, Roger. The
Oh,
moment he
is
put
that you sent me something? Definitely.
right, right. The moment he put his hand over my hand, it was about this far up, not even close, all the way down. I felt the heat. Tear was running down. And our second time meeting, we both sat and we started channeling the language that I never heard of in my life.
Hmm.
And we both looked at each other, and he said, son, I said, dad, like we had full memory of our past life.
Mm.
Our relationship is very rich, and I am very grateful for that man in my life. And he has a nickname. I'm calling Papa Bear.
Mm.
It's something to do with our native background also. We both have a native background and past life. I'm very connected to native.
Hmm.
Most of the time in my path, they do show up and they share information. So that's when everything unfolds. But little you know, I was fighting it and my ego was saying this is insane. I
Mm.
would never experience all this beauty.
Right.
So it's all about exception and allowing
Uh,
something as human conditioning we have a really hard time to do and go by.
They gave me a message a while ago because I don't have I don't have visuals. I just feel and I can interpret things very quickly, but I don't have the visuals like some people have. And then or my really good friend who used to be around, unfortunately she passed away, but she she said, you don't remember anything. And it just kept coming up. And then I received the message that I have a selective memory, meaning
Mhm.
that I will remember because there's so much there that I couldn't remember all the mundane little things that happened in my life in my past. I'm remembering old stuff, and that's what I'm bringing in. And so, yeah, the other things I only have so much capacity, so I couldn't remember what happened last week or what I ate for breakfast yesterday. you know, so it's been, uh, yeah, interesting. And then things like that, what you're talking about, the things that we don't expect it because we're so locked into what we think everything is. And then the messages, the other part of this, which was weird and crazy, is that they said, and you will find that there will be corresponding dates of messages that we gave you, which you will see things happening in your world that will go, what? And now, for most days, I'm just going and seeing what messages they gave me either in 2012 or 2013. They shift back and forth sometimes. They said, because it's a trajectory that we've all been on. This is why 2012 happened for you, because
That's right.
yeah, because that was a time where there was this movement, and many of us were aware of what's happening then. And then, like the thing that happened when I first, because I didn't even know what that meant at first in 2012, and I'm talking about this weirdness that was happening, and somebody in a Facebook group, for instance, says, Roger, don't you know that was when the Mayan calendar ended, and people thought the world was going to end? I go, that was interesting. I remembered it when they said it. I had no conscious memory of that. And so I went to look at what did they give me on that date on December 21st. And the message was the title of the message was Wait. What? Why am I getting it? And then it said, the way that you use, it says there's the energy of the word wait, meaning expecting something better, expecting more to come, because they were saying, this is what you're doing. Your world's not ending. You're creating something new. So just anticipate what you want that to be. And so the energy of weight was saying, what do I want to show up? And this is the work that we're all meant to do now because we're looking at things going on in the world. Well, yeah, we're supposed to bring in something better. And those of us who are become aware this is where we finding the soul family. So we have to then decide, oh, I'm going to own this aspect of me, and that's going to make a huge difference.
Hmm. Absolutely. Um, I have heard that about 3 months ago. I was coming and I'm like, all right, I'm going to start doing my podcast and sharing my knowledge on what's going on. And the word was wait, same
Yeah.
thing. Patient and wait, patient
That's
and wait. And I'm not kidding you. Even in my practical business, I'm a hypnosis, so I deal with PTSD and a lot of people that have different type of variation of their
right.
life. And the reason why I even changed my website and name everything because I was using my gift more than my material, what I studied in the school. That's the honest to God the truth. And oftentimes people they ask me, they're like, "How did you do this? How did you know this? Extra stuff like it's not in a book. How did you know about my grandparents or my mom or dad?" So then I was like, I need to really share that. And it was all about timing. The time started happening when at the time.
Hmm.
And a couple of months ago, whatever I was doing, it wasn't working. Whether the camera was off or recording was not happening, or even I was buying more leads, it wasn't working. They were like, you're going to be patient and wait. So
Right.
I'm in this stage of my life, and this is something I want to share for all the audience from your experience point of view, myself as well. They need to really trust
Hmm.
and have a faith. Just like when we born from our mother's womb, we
Hmm.
don't sit there and create an app. Could we cry? Can you please feed? You just know it's been in us. And when we talking to audience, don't go in the head space. Most people, most preacher, most spiritual community, they have this idea that you pay the program a lot, then
Hmm.
we teach you how to go to this galactic understanding
Hmm.
or how to use this certain crystal to raise your frequency. And they might hate about what I'm sharing, but the truth of the matter is you just need to let them come with their own divine timing,
Hmm.
moment, that
Exactly.
present now. And also, really acknowledging everybody is really trying their best,
Right.
even they don't understand a lot of things in their perception.
Hmm.
It doesn't make them to be less than us. When you're walking in the every aisle of your life, in the grocery, in the airport, your kids at school, just passing by everybody, just realizing even you don't see their pain or their dilemma in life, they're part of you, and you're just sending them love from your heart, it will change your life because it's not about that person in the line you sending a love. You sending it back to you because they're part of you.
Hmm.
Everybody's saying that, but it really, I start feeling it, Roger. I feel it. I can feel people conscious and heart and mind and body and physiques. And I understand what's really going on. And the beauty about it is that's how divine is seeing us. They don't say, Roger, you're different look, you're different body, you have a different diet. So you go to the right side, please sit there and we call you. Oh, you pay more. So you're not our speaker. Please come to this side of town. They don't do that. It's us
I can
as
read
a
some.
human.
Yes.
We doing that.
Yeah, this is good. I'm gonna, and you'll relate to this because I kept receiving, or seeing this one message from 2012, and I go, oh, is this what we're all supposed to come to? And so, and it's this understanding. I said, we want you to try to get as many people as you can to really understand this message. And they gave me to me in a couple different ways during that year. Because if we were all to come to understand this, we would have a very different world. We wouldn't be fighting each other. We wouldn't be killing each other. We wouldn't be doing a lot of things that we've been doing. And so the message is this: your story is unique and valuable. It is unique because no other soul shares precisely your story. It holds the utmost value for you. Your story is comprised of everything your past holds, including all that has occurred for you, happened to you, everything you have done, every person you have met, and every word you have spoken. All of it has been and always will be perfect. Your only job then is to seek to know the perfection of your story. Any aspect of your particular story that you attempt to ignore, dismiss, or judge will cause you to experience some difficulty because you are refusing to receive the information and wisdom that your story holds.
That's beautiful. Wow. Would you honor us before our session will be over and do a channeling? Anything
Sure.
like this?
Um, anything in particular?
Whatever you feel.
Okay. There is something that's coming through that they want everyone to have because let- okay, let me bring it in. We're so pleased you're here and we're ready to give you something that's going to really help you in the coming days because we want more of you to understand the changes that are occurring in your world. They might look a little uncomfortable, chaotic, but they're for your highest good for each of you because you are trying to release this old energy that each of you have carried in your lineage. And it's been generational, as we've said, this particular restructuring, which many of you are speaking of and knowing going to a different dimension, the fifth dimension, that is true. But in order to get there, you've got to drop all the old stuff. We say that you have to drop all your baggage. Your baggage is your weight, and the weight is all the stuff that you have carried with you, and it's in your consciousness and your thoughts. And then when you start dropping it, you become lighter. And that is the process of ascension, and it's ascension to the light. And you're all doing that, and your planet is doing that at this time, which is why it has been a bit frightening. But we've just wanted you to understand that if you would decide to shift your focus, shift your perspective, and when you see something going on that's uncomfortable in your world, know that it's there to awaken you to the beauty, the worth, and benevolent being that you are so that you can bring that into the world. And the more of you who do that, then you will start to see very soon, as a matter of fact, a different world emerging. Now, we will say that due to the configuration of your universe and the planets and all of that, you probably have another year of these intense energies moving through you. However, if you use them for your benefit, by the time you get to that next year, your world is going to be more beautiful. It's not going to be completely changed, but you will make the greatest difference if you begin now. If you begin to honor who you are and understand that everything you have lived has brought you to this moment so that you can make this greatest contribution in your world, and the planetary ascension that you're all moving through will become exactly what you want it to be. Now, the thing that you haven't connected yet, and this is what we want more of you to come to, how important it is for you to be happy, how important for it is for you to love yourself, because we're speaking about energy here. Yes, you've been through many other things in your past and they've been challenging and difficult, but that was to get you to let go of all of that stuff. But now, this period, you need to start accepting your worth. You need to start understanding what you've brought to this world, because the more of you who do that, you see, you're raising the energy not only within your life, but in your entire planet, because that is why you're here. Not everyone will understand you. We want you to understand this. This is why some of your relationships might turn out to be a little different than what you thought, because you're not going to take the same evolutionary path as anyone else. You're supposed to honor your evolutionary path. And if you do that, because that's the one that's connected to us, that's connected to God, that's connected to the universe, all that is, when you honor that, you will see all the changes in your world start to occur. But you have to look beyond all of the other things. They're just there to give you the awareness to awaken to who you are. And so the other thing we want to see, because we know that the divisions and the judgments are going to come up. And so when you see them, you want to use that as a signal to love yourself more, because that will make all the difference. And we love you all very much. And thank you so much for having us here. And we will give you more, and we will give you more on the Sunday as well, because there more movement happening. This is why we have had our guide do another channeling session to bring through more information. But just remember that you are here to make a difference in your world, and you will do that by loving who you are. And we love you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have a question for you. How
Mhm.
we can help the young generation, especially young children, as a new DNA? They have a definitely curious nature, and they're one. They're going to change also humanity in the current time. How we can assist them with their vision, experience that might have be a dream, or
Yes.
seeing different experience from this current reality
You,
without
this is
them to have a fear.
This is why you're here. This is your work. This is why you're here. Because see, you each will be an example for the others. And they're the ones who are going to really facilitate and bring this new world to fruition. And so you are moving through your path to be the example for them. So the more of you who begin to be the example for what can be done, then the kids will get that. But you have to understand, more of your children now are coming in with a greater awareness that you've not had. And so they will start inspiring you. And you allow that to happen because many of you will try to control them because you think that as parents and all of that, that's what you're supposed to do, is meant to control them. However, at this time, this is different. They're coming in with a new level of awareness that they could give you, that you could benefit from when you start to honor them. And so your job as parents is really to bring in and be the example and honor them and allow their souls to develop instead of controlling them. This is a period in your world where you're letting go of that control. And the more of you who can understand your autonomy and pass it on to your children, wow, will you have a different world. And so that's what's going on with, and you brought this up because your connection to children is going to be so valuable and worthy at this time. So we're so glad that you have seen that, because see, you can't shift into the world unless you start with the new generation, because many of you are still holding on to the old stuff, and that's challenging. So please be the example for the younger ones.
My next question is how people they can move from fear to love.
Stop judging. That's it. The difficulty that you all have is judgment. And you will judge yourself, and then you start to judge others, not understanding that all any of you are doing is moving through previous limitations and restrictions, and that's when you start to judge. But if you understand that you needed to have those, otherwise you couldn't move to this higher level of belief and understanding of who you are. And so the first thing that you can do as the individual is to notice when you're judging yourself, because that's been given to you. You didn't do this right. You're wrong about this. And that has been given to you. So when you can notice that, you're going to use your human brain and change it in the moment. And it has to be in the moment. Don't think you're going to instantly get rid of all of these things because you've been carrying them for so long. What you are meant to do is begin to notice them. Why am I saying those terrible things to myself? Why am I judging myself? Okay, I'm going to change that right here. And the more you do that, you develop this momentum, this ability that you'll do it instantly. And then eventually you won't even have them show up. You'll find yourself in this new place where you won't think in that old way. This is that fifth dimensional thinking that we've been speaking of, but it takes some time for you to get there because you're moving through generations of old belief.
Thank you so much for sharing. My next question. For most people like yourself, they had a different job, or they do have a job that is associated being, for example, doctor or attorney, and they come to the experience of awakening. How would you help them to move forward from the old belief system to new principle of it's okay to move forward. It's okay to change a career and trust that inner voice or higher self or divine guiding.
Well, you gave us the best word, trust. And that's the most difficult one. Trust and faith are the things that you all lack so much. And so that's what you want to develop. And so when someone is moving, you have different paths that you're meant to follow. And you get off track, so to speak, because you still operate on your human chronological ages, meaning that you think that by this age you should do this and that age and that age. No, you're eternal spiritual being, so you're going to change. As your consciousness evolves, you could be 80 years old and decide that, oh, now I'm going to do something different. That's perfect because your evolution, your spiritual path was saying that's what you would do. So when you start to find these things showing up, what many times happens, it frightens many of you, and this is why you don't want to move there, or you think you're going to be embarrassed or judged because of someone else starting to think. But you must know that you're evolving, and your individual path will start to show up, and it'll show up at the right time for your life. You keep hearing these things, and your world has given you this for many years about the divine plan. Yes, you have one. The universe, Gaia, Mother Earth, all of that has a divine plan, but you have yours as well. And your individual divine plan is showing up at the right time whenever you happen to be in physical form, and that is what is occurring now. So anyone around, anyone who would hear us and would know that you are here to shine, and the more you give yourself permission to do that, you will change everything in your life and the world. But the other thing that many of you do when you start becoming encounter some of these things, that you go into fear. And the fear is just you not loving who you are and not understanding that you want to move into this unknown version of who you are. And that is where everything that you want lives.
Thank you. What's the best way of acting forgiveness?
Just that. Just that. Asking for forgiveness. First of all, this is brilliant because you now noticed you said you felt this because you know that you need it. Now, the only reason that you need forgiveness is because of the judgment that you've done before and the ones that you've accepted. We want you to understand that because you each come in with these memories from those who've come before, and they're always limited. You always operate in a limited awareness. And so when you understand that you don't judge yourself as much for what you're moving through and what you haven't gotten to yet. And that's the main thing, is to move through your self-judgment, and then you will perform more of the task that you intended in this life path, which is to cause your world to become more and better. And that's why you're all here. This period is not accidental, you know. This period has been planned for a long time. This has been in the works. This has been a generational move that's been coming. And so now that when it shows up, many of you have this fear because of all the chaos and that. But as we've said, the chaos and the conflict and all of that are necessary because you have to uncover the stuff that you weren't willing to see or move through. But then when you do that, then you walk this different path. And then you start creating a world that is much more to the liking of all of you.
Thank you so much. How people they can do a better job for self-acceptance?
Sorry?
What's the best way we can practice for self-acceptance?
It's the same thing. It's all the same process, but many of you do not take the time to do this. See, you have to go move through examining the restrictions and limitations that you've had there. And it's a mental process again this is why you mindset and all of that, it's about consciousness. But when you notice the limitations, because many of them you've accepted them, and many of the ideas and the things that you each are here to do have been talked out of you. And usually it happens when you're children that you have that belief talked out of you. So now it's about understanding that you have to uncover that. And sometimes that's painful. Sometimes many of you don't want to do that because you're afraid of what you're going to find. And we're saying that when you decide to discover what's within you and why you've had your experiences, you find this beautiful being that's just waiting to emerge. That's what's happening. But when you start to think that you have these ideas that you did all this wrong stuff and you're bad people, then you don't allow yourself to even discover the innate value that you are and what you came to offer your world.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all your beautiful explanation.
Great. Thank you so much. We were so pleased here, and we love you all so much. Thank you.
I love you back.
Okay. Well, I'll hear that later and see what the heck they told you.
I have one last question for you.
Mhm.
Have you, since you mentioned earlier about the Atlantis time,
Mhm.
do you have most memory of the past life, or do you have some part? And if some experience that comes up for you, how do you visualize it or take a point of view? How do you understand it better from message? Like
Okay.
you see certain things.
I need to go back. I'm sorry. Let me
No worries.
Okay, wait 1 second. Each of you are eternal spiritual beings. You're not going to have the same memories. And if they're not serving this particular lifetime, you're not going to have memories of past lives and all of that, or different places and Atlantean energy. Roger did not remember his Atlantean energy. It was told to him by someone else, and then it made sense because it resonated for him, and he understands it now because your memories get unlocked a bit at a time. You don't come to them all at once. And so now what's happening is you're all having the memories come up from the past. And as you begin to move through the restricted ones, then you create a very different life. Now, we want to say this. Not all of you are going to do the same path. Many of you will not do what Roger's doing. You will not receive information in this way, even though you have that connection. You all have ancient memories that have existed because you're eternal spiritual beings, but you may not be accessing it precisely in this way. You get information, you're supposed to collaborate with one another because as you look at others and hear other channelers or people like that, it awakens your ancient memory because you all have it. You just won't maybe necessarily remember it all in the same way. And for some of you, you will not have any memory of that, just a feeling that you know you exist for a reason, and you all do.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thanks. Okay. Huh. This is great.
Where people they can find you? What is your website?
It's
And social media?
yes, thank you so much. It's rogerburnley.com. ROGERBURNLEY, rogerburnley.com. Everything
Okay.
is there.
And for myself, my business name also is Attimo, ATTIMO, life, LIFE, and it said passport to consciousness. Actually, that was the spirit.
Great.